The man who ordered the strikes on Iran was a cancer patient. He did not tell you. He did not tell his own parliament. He did not tell the American pilots who flew alongside Israeli jets. For 2 full months, he sat across from cameras, looked the world in the eye, and let everyone act on a version of him that did not exist. A 0.9 centimeter malignant tumor sat inside Benjamin Netanyahu while Israel fought a war with Iran. Radiation was being aimed at his prostate, while Iranian missiles were aimed at Tel Aviv. The country firing the rockets did not know. The country absorbing them did not know. And Washington, coordinating airstrikes on Iranian nuclear sites with him on the secure line, did not know either. If you want the version of this story that the press conferences are not giving you, hit subscribe right now and drop one word in the comments. Betrayal, alibi, or routine. That word is your verdict on what you are about to hear. The official word for what he did is quietly. He quietly underwent treatment. There is no quiet way to receive cancer therapy as the head of a wartime government. Every silent decision in that hospital was a loud absence somewhere else, and the rooms that should have known were the rooms making decisions about bombing Iran. March 2026, Iranian state media floods the internet with claims that Netanyahu is dead. AI accounts amplify it, so his office stages a reply. He sits in a cafe in the Jerusalem hills, lifts a coffee, smiles, and jokes that he is dead for coffee. The video goes everywhere. The country relaxes. Nobody outside a tiny circle knows that the man on screen had just finished a course of radiation aimed at a tumor he had told no one about. That coffee cup carried 3 messages. I am alive. I am here. I am fine. The first 2 were true. The last one was theater, performed for a country at war by a man who already knew exactly what was inside him and exactly what he was not going to say. The medical record begins on December 29, 2024. He is 76 years old. He undergoes surgery at Hadassah Medical Center for an enlarged prostate. The Prime Minister's office calls the procedure benign. They say there is no suspicion of cancer. The statement was technically true the day it was issued. It quietly stopped being true the moment a follow-up scan looked anywhere else. 2 days later, on December 31st, 2024, he walks into the Knesset for a budget vote. Less than 48 hours after surgery, surrounded by legislators, smiling for cameras. The image was the message. A man so vital, he could leave a hospital bed and run a parliament. 15 months later, he would run the same playbook with a different cup of coffee. Months pass. A routine follow-up MRI flags a small mass. Here is the first crack in the official version. Standard follow-up after enlarged prostate surgery is a PSA blood test, not magnetic resonance imaging. Israeli oncologists have asked openly why an MRI was ordered. No one inside the government has answered. Either someone in his medical team had already seen something they did not like, or the protocol was unusually aggressive. And either reading raises the same question. What did they know? When did they know it? And who outside that hospital was told? The biopsy comes back as prostatic adenocarcinoma, 0.9 centimeters. Early stage, no metastases, by itself. An unremarkable diagnosis for a man in his late 70s. The story is not that tumor. The story is the wall built around it while a country was firing missiles into Iran and absorbing missiles in return. Now lay this against the war calendar. The 12-day war with Iran ran from June 13th to June 24th, 2025. Operation Rising Lion strikes on Natanz, Ordau, Isfahan. Iran fired more than 550 ballistic missiles and over 1,000 drones at Israeli cities. American B-2 bombers hit 3 Iranian nuclear sites on June 22nd. Iran answered by striking Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, where U.S. personnel were stationed. American troops were inside that retaliation. American intelligence shaped that retaliation, and the Israeli Prime Minister, coordinating with Washington, was already carrying a tumor that would later be irradiated in secret. Through the rest of 2025, the scans continued. The MRI finding landed. The diagnosis was confirmed. He was offered 2 paths: watch the cancer or attack it with radiation. He picked the same posture he picked at Natanz. He attacked. He just refused to tell the country that a beam was being aimed at his own body the same way he was aiming beams at theirs. Then the calendar tightens around him. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel open a renewed military campaign against Iran. By his own doctor's account, his radiation course is running in the same window. The war clock and the radiation clock are ticking on the same days, in the same chest, while orders are leaving the same mouth. And here is where the official version eats itself. In the same hospital video that announced this story to the world, Professor Aaron Popovetsar of Hadassah Shared Institute of Oncology said the radiation took place 2.5 months ago. He also said it ended after about 2.5 months. The hospital was asked which one was true. The hospital did not answer. So the public is left holding one of two readings. Either the treatment ran from late November 2025 straight through the opening week of the war, or the timeline is still being managed in real time. Now, the alibi. He said he hid all of it because revealing his medical report at the height of the war would have given Iran false propaganda against Israel. That is the line. That is the line his office has repeated since Friday. The line breaks the second you put it next to what Iran was already doing without any help from a hospital. Iran was already declaring him dead. Iranian state media was already manufacturing his demise. His own office had already shot the Cathay footage to refute it. There was no fresh propaganda a cancer file could give Tehran that Tehran had not already invented from nothing. So the alibi cannot be about Iran. It has to be about somebody else. Look at what his coalition built in 2023. An amendment stripped the Attorney General of the power to declare a prime minister unfit and handed that power exclusively to the prime minister or the cabinet. In plain language only, Netanyahu's allies could declare Netanyahu unfit. By the time the radiation began, the safeguard was already disabled. The concealment was not improvisation. It was insulated by a law his own people wrote a year and a half in advance. And there was one more clock running underneath all of it. Israeli elections are due by October 2026. The disclosure on April 24th lands exactly inside the survivor's window, late enough that doctors can announce the disease is gone, early enough that the story converts into a campaign asset, a leader who beat cancer in silence to protect his country during war. That is not a hospital briefing. That is a re-election narrative produced inside an oncology unit. Remember the night the 12-day war ended? He stood at the podium and called it a historic victory. He said 2 existential threats had been removed. He sold the country a story about a leader saved by his own judgment. He never mentioned that within months that judgment would also be the judgment of a cancer patient, under treatment. On a clock he refused to share with the people firing missiles for him. Under Israeli law, the type of radiation matters. Some methods require general anesthesia. If anesthesia was used even for an hour, the law obligates the appointment of an acting prime minister for the duration of sedation. The medical report does not name the radiation method. It does not name a Gleason score. It does not confirm whether anesthesia was administered. It does not confirm whether power was ever transferred for an hour, an afternoon, or a day. That gap is not paperwork. That is the gap between a country governed by law and a country governed by one man's preference. The 2023 amendment closed the legal door. The medical opacity blurs the operational door. The war provided the cover story, and nobody in the chain of command, not the cabinet, not the Knesset, not the American officials calling him on a secure line at 3 in the morning, has confirmed they were ever told. The disease, by every test the hospital has released, is gone. Imaging is clean. Blood work is clean. The lesion has cleared. On the medicine, take the doctors at their word. The man is alive. The cancer is not. That part is real. Everything around it is the question that does not go away. So return to the central pressure of this whole story. While Israel was striking Iran and Iran was firing back at Israeli cities, who was actually running the war and from whom was the truth withheld? The answer is now provable on every layer. The Israeli public was governed by a curated prime minister. The Knesset voted on military operations without knowing the medical state of the man requesting them. American pilots flew strike packages built on intelligence sessions with a wartime ally who was withholding his own diagnosis. And the man at the center of all of it had already arranged, in 2023, to be the only person legally entitled to call himself unfit. This was not a wartime exception. It was a wartime architecture. Built across 3 years and 4 medical episodes, the pacemaker in 2023, disclosed only after the operation. The hernia in 2024, disclosed late and thin. The prostate procedure in December 2024, framed as benign, and now the cancer, admitted only after the radiation was over, and the story could be sold as victory. Each one announced on his clock. Each one packaged as strength. Each one paid for by somebody else's right to know. There is a question Israelis will be asked at the ballot box in October. There is a question American lawmakers will be asked when the next aid package goes to a vote. There is a question every government coordinating with Jerusalem will now have to ask before the next war. How much of the man across the table is real? And how much of him are we being shown? That question did not exist on April 23rd. It exists now, and it will exist for every prime minister who comes after him. He treated his body as a state secret while his country fought a war. He has answered to no court for it. He has answered to no parliament for it. He will answer in October only to a ballot, and by then the story will be radiation that worked, a country that won, and a leader who survived. The math of that bargain is the real disclosure. He kept the cancer, Israel kept the war, the world kept the silence, and one of those three things was a choice somebody made for the rest of us.